hope you're having a great Saturday. And I know this is strange. I don't usually produce any videos or send anything out to you this late in the week. But I wanted to include this because I think what we share today will be a great bridge between last Sunday and tomorrow's services, especially the Sunday morning message about the life of Esther and how we see the purpose of God being worked out in the world and his providence being acted upon his people. He provides for us. He gives us direction and protection. And it's a wonderful story to illustrate both the purpose of God and the providence of God. Last Sunday night, we were talking. In fact, in the Sunday evening service, I mentioned 3D chess. And our own Terry mentioned that he had played it, and I think he even owned a set, but he was at least familiar with it. And I told him that it boggled my mind. I don't know how you could keep track of the levels if you know anything about 3D chess. But he said, yeah, he had done it, and he told me it would be easy if I learned it, and I disagreed heartily with him. But I was thinking about that afterward, and I shared with him I learned chess when I was a kid, as many of you probably did. But when I was in junior high, I had the opportunity to be in a chess club. Now, you can say whatever you'd like to me about me at that point, but Mr. Burridge, our teacher in junior high at Skycrest Christian in Clearwater, he gave us opportunities to rise above just the bare minimum. And I've told some of you before, and I've mentioned it in sermons, I took Hebrew, just a basic level Hebrew, as a junior high student in Christian school. I took Greek, and that helped me later on in life. And we had a radio club, and I loved radio, still do, and that was fascinating to me, and I had the opportunity to go on that little broadcast, as it were. We were just using, I think, the monitor system from room to room, but we got to do a radio program when we would give the news and sporting reports and things like that, school scores. And we had a chess club, and I signed up, and I knew chess, and I dabbled with it a little bit, and I found out that there were others in there that knew chess. I could play, but I could also lose pretty quickly, and I did not excel at chess club. I enjoy playing people who don't know and teaching them so that I can look like I know what I'm doing. But I found out that when I played people who really knew chess, that didn't include me. And I found an article from about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, from Philip Yancey. Some of you have read some of his works, and he gave an article in a publication in the year 2000, and it fits so well with this, and I think talks to us about how God is working in the world at large. And the life of Esther, and we've talked about this, gives us this great illustration. Here's what Yancey said in this article. In high school, I took pride in my ability to play chess, he said. I joined the chess club, and then during lunch hour, we could be found sitting at a table with other nerds poring over books with titles like Classic King Pawn Openings. I studied techniques. I won most of my matches, and I put the game aside for 20 years. He said then in Chicago, I met a truly fine chess player who had been perfecting his skills since high school. And when we played a few matches, I learned what it is like to play against a master. Any classic offense I tried, he countered with a classic defense. If I turned to more risky, unorthodox techniques, he incorporated my bold forays into his winning strategies. Although I had complete freedom to make any move I wished, I soon reached the conclusion that none of my strategies mattered very much. His superior skill guaranteed that my purposes invariably ended up serving his own. Perhaps God engages our universe, his own creation, in much the same way. Yancey says, he grants us freedom to rebel against its original design. But even as we do, we end up ironically serving his eventual goal of restoration. If I accept that blueprint, a huge step of faith, I confess it transforms how I view both good and bad things that happen. Good things, such as health, talent, and money, I can present to God as offerings to serve his purposes. And bad things, disability, poverty, family dysfunction, failures, can be redeemed as the very instruments that drive me to God. I really loved that. In my studies for the book of Esther, we're going to study tomorrow about the king and his selfishness, his pride, and ask the question, what about proud people? What about selfish people? Are they enough to redirect or to thwart God's purposes in his world? Is someone who is powerful and proud, it's a rough combination, are they enough to overcome what God is trying to do? I think most of you know the answer, but it's an interesting study that we'll engage in tomorrow morning at 10:30. In fact, later on, we're going to talk about what about plain evil people? Is evil or evil people, are they enough to overcome the purposes of God or to thwart the providence of God on our behalf? And I think you know the answer there as well, because overall in this whole study of the book of Esther, we are going to see God working out his purposes in ways we could not imagine, and the ways that he provides for his children with protection and provision, with care and with guidance. All of those things, they are in God's hands. And it is truly like we're playing on a 2D chessboard, and God sees all of it, knows all of it, and has all of the power. And yet he allows us this freedom to choose. My prayer, our desire, is that we choose to obey, live holy, separate lives, serving the purposes of God, finding a place, think of this, to cooperate with the big plan that God has for our world. That's a privilege. That's a privilege for God's children. And I pray that every day we're engaged in that. We're engaged in working out the big purpose of God, not only in our lives, but in the world around us. I can't say any more because I've got to save something for tomorrow morning. 10:30, we're studying Esther, the purpose and the providence of God as it's shown in her life, and I hope you'll join us. Let us each commit to serving God with our lives and working out his purposes.